Hello, everybody. So what we're doing here, we are going to be starting to talk about trigonometric identities and trigonometric equations. But before we talk about trigonometric equations, I want to mention the zero product property, because this is something that we're going to end up using a lot. Now, essentially, the zero product property says that if two numbers, a and b, multiply together to equal 0, then either A is 0 or B is 0. And this is something that we used a lot in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and even some in geometry. It is essentially the way that we solve equations like this. 3x plus 1 times x squared minus 9 equals 0. These are just two numbers being multiplied together. So that means that either 3x plus 1 is 0 or x squared minus 9 is 0. Now, if 3x plus 1 is 0, that means that 3x is negative 1, which means that x is negative 1/3. If x squared minus 9 is 0, that means that x squared is 9, which means that x is the square root of 9, which is plus or minus 3. Meaning we have three answers here: the negative 1/3, the positive 3, and the negative 3. So let's look at one where we have to do a little bit more work, so to speak. Okay, so let's say we have 4x squared plus 11x minus 3 equals 0. Well, we need to factor this first. So when we're factoring, we always first check to see if there's a greatest common factor. There is not. Then we need to basically answer a question. We want two numbers that add to give me 11, but multiply to give me 4 times negative 3, which is negative 12. And we should be relatively quick to see here that these numbers would be positive 12 and negative 1. Now that we have those two numbers, we need to factor it. So one method of doing this is to create a box, and it's the method we'll look at today. And in this first part, I'm going to have 4x squared. In the second part, I'm going to have 12x. Third spot, I'm going to have negative x. And last spot, I'm going to have negative 3. So now I look at the top two numbers and I ask, what do they have in common? Well, both of the numbers are divisible by 4, and both of them have an x, so 4x. And then I look at the bottom two and I ask what they have in common. Well, the only thing they have in common is a 1, but since this box right here is negative, I am going to write this as a negative 1. Then I look at the left two boxes. They don't have any numbers in common, but they do have an x in common, so I'm going to write down an x. And then we have our right column, so our right two numbers. And 12 is divisible by 3. And since this 12 is not negative, we are not going to write negative 3. So this means that we now have 4x minus 1, x plus 3, and that's going to equal 0. So, using the zero product property, this tells me that 4x minus 1 is 0, or x plus 3 is 0. And if x plus 3 is 0, that means that x is negative 3. If 4x minus 1 is 0, that means that 4x is going to equal 1. And then that's going to also mean that x equals 1/4. So we have two answers here. X is negative 3 and x is 1/4. Okay, that is kind of the setup for how we're going to be solving trigonometric equations, a combination of this and trig identities. But that's going to do it for this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.